Hey guys, so in this video, we're taking the double angles that we just talked about. I'm just going to try to do one quick example of it. And to start with, this is going to be very similar to some of the previous problems we've done. We are given that sine of theta is negative 12 over 13, but it's in quadrant 3. So if we think about where that's located at, we know quadrant 3 is here. So I have my triangle. Remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And our hypotenuse value always has to be positive. So our actual negative value will be that 12. So I'll have a 13 hypotenuse. Remember, sine coincides with our y values. So I'll have a negative 12 here. So this side will be negative 12. But we still want to find our other value because we know we're going to have to use cosine. So I'm going to do Pythagorean Theorem. So a squared negative 12 squared equals 13 squared. So a squared equals 144. Oh, I'm sorry, plus 144 equals 169. And we know we're going to subtract those values. So a squared equals 25, which will give us a value of 5. So that will be this other piece on my triangle. So now that we have each of those values, we get to use our double angle identities. So remember, looking back on what we already talked about in the last video, we have all of these pieces here, right? So all you're going to have to do is plug into these pieces. So sine double angle is 2 sine x cosine x. So we know we're going to use sine cosine. So let's go ahead and figure out what those values are. So I know sine of x, what they gave us is negative 12 over 13. We just found cosine, which we know since we've came up with 5 would be 5 over 13. Here's the issue. We know we're in quadrant 3. Both sine and cosine will be negative there, so we want to make sure we have a negative 5 over 13. Okay? Should have put that there in the beginning because we're going to the left. So now we can use both of those values to plug in. So I'm going to do sine double angle, where I take 2 times my sine, which is negative 12 over 13, and then multiply it by cosine. I'm going to multiply all of these values together. I'm just going to type them in, and we still should get a fraction value. So negative 12 over 13, negative 5 over 13, all this times 2. And remember to leave it in your fraction value. So we get 120 for 169 for our sine double angle. Now, for cosine, remember we're going to do cosine squared minus sine squared. So I'm going to take my cosine value, square it, and then my sine value, and square. And the great thing here, since we're squaring those values, we know they will become positive. So negative 5 over 13 squared, and then we're going to subtract negative 12 over 13 squared. And once again, we want to leave it as our fraction value, which we obtain negative 119 over 169. And then finally, tan. So remember, I told y'all there's 2 tangent values for double angle here, but we didn't want to use this one because it's going to be a lot harder for us. All we want to focus on is sine over cosine. And since we've already found those values, we can just take sine double angle over cosine of double angle, which 120 over 169 over negative 119 over 169. And the great thing is we will be able to cancel these values out because the denominators are the same. So the denominators will cancel on us, and we are left with negative 120 and 1/19. So that will give you your double angle value. Now, The next piece we need to talk about and what they will ask for is what quadrant is a double angle in. Okay. That we usually ask for that value. And all we want to focus on are what are our sine, cosine values looking like. So I know my sine value is positive. I know it's positive 120 over 169. Okay. Well, remember, all students take calculus. So where are the only places that sine is positive? We know it's in all quadrant 1 and students here for sine in quadrant 2. So that would be great for us. We know it's one of those. And then cosine is negative. So to go to the negative value, remember cosine goes with our x values, we would have to move to the left. So since we were only able to choose quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 because of our sine being positive, the cosine will point us to the left, which would be quadrant 2. So that's another value that you will actually have to take a look at.